Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host. And today's Instagram Live episode is the 25th that we've done, I believe. And we've got Dan Knight from Knight Landscapes coming up on this week's episode of the podcast. So another landscape builder. So I obviously enjoyed that one a lot. And there's some good bits of advice to take out of that because he started off in commercial landscaping and then started his business in residential. So it was good hearing some of the benefits of doing that and learning off some commercial landscapers. Some of the people that they worked for when they were commercial landscapers who were specialists in other fields within landscaping. So that'll make sense when you listen to the episode more than what I'll explain it there. The first question is from Dan Foreman. He said, end of month payments in this day and age, just as ridiculous as pyramid schemes. So he's talking about getting paid by clients or businesses that you're working for 30 or 60 days from the end of the month or from when after you've done the project. So it's very much common in commercial world, but not so much in residential. And it's a horrible thing for residential landscapers to go through because there's obviously not as much turnover in that as what there is within commercial works. And then there's all sorts of other things that make it harder for the landscapers in commercial world. So I think it's ridiculous. You've got to have payment terms like mine are 7 days. Most people are 7 days or some are 14, but whatever your terms are, that's what the client should pay in. And you've got to agree to that from the start. And if they don't like that, then you can go and work somewhere else and find someone who will pay you on time. Because I've had a project that they didn't want to pay that. So we walked away from the project. And then I've heard that other people had issues with them as well. So got to trust your gut on that. There are times like we've done it where we've known they were going to be later payments. So, if you know what you're going into and you're happy with it, then that's fine. But as long as you're aware and support the cash flow, because cash flow is one of the hardest parts of it. James Zala said, when are you getting your abs out for a Women's Day shoot? So I believe he's referring to the one that Charlie Osborne did for Dancing with the Stars. Haven't had any calls yet for it, but good news is for me that plus size models are a lot more popular these days. So might be in with a shot in the near future. I don't think hairy people are in vogue yet, so we're still a minority that people aren't getting behind. So I might have to push that a bit harder. Megan Kirby said, what advice or tips would you give to women who want to work in the industry? I reckon being persistent so that you can get the job first, because it's obviously going to be a lot harder for women to get a job in a male-dominated industry, which the landscaping certainly is. And although, like, if you want to get into construction, it might be a good idea to get in if there's a company that does construction and maintenance. It might be good to start somewhere in maintenance, because you're more likely to get a job there, and then you can do then you can do a day or two construction to show that you can do that kind of work, and that's what you want to do. As long as you communicate that with the employer that you want to work in construction, they can work towards that. So just be persistent, really. It's save for women and men who want to get into the industry, because it's often hard to get into when you don't have any experience, because everyone seems to be looking for experience. So I certainly had that issue when I was trying to get into it. But there's no doubt it's harder for females to get into the industry. And just apply, like make sure you're applying at places you want to work. But just apply as many places that you want to work, even if they're not advertising that they're looking for someone. Just let them know that you're looking for a job, and tell them, maybe just do a bit of research into the company so you can prove that you're not just applying to anyone. You actually have looked into them and that you want to work for them, so that it's not just a generic application that you're doing. But I found it's really like the job applications I've received from females who want to work in landscaping, they're always better than the male ones, because the males are just seem to be generic, like I said. So it's not hard to stand out in front of them. So you just got to get your foot in the door, and then once you're in there, then you just got to work your ass off so that you can show that you're a valued member of the team. And also, if you know other women who are in the industry, reach out to them and get advice as well, because they've done it. So they're going to have a better idea of how to do it than what I would. But yeah, definitely be persistent. Cam from AppCam Horticulture said, do you own or rent your business premises? So I rent it, but if I had cash, I would definitely buy it, because I think property is a good thing to have and in your portfolio. And I know that I want to be there for a long while, so it'd definitely be a good idea to buy that. I don't know how it works with tax implications and all that sort of thing, and but it's something I've considered doing, but I know that the landlords aren't too keen on selling it anyway. So, and I wouldn't want to move somewhere else, because where I am, it's a pretty old tin shed, so it's not one of the fancy tilt panel concrete sheds that, or I don't even know how you call them sheds anymore, but premises that most people build these days. So I know that if I bought one of them, it'd be a hell of a lot more expensive. So I'd rather stay where I am, because it's old and not too fancy, but it's good size and it's exactly what I need at the moment. So definitely do rent it, but if I could, I would buy it. Simon from the Planted Space said, where did you lose your marks on your Mifkus build, the garden show build? I loved being able to chat to, I forgot his name. No, not coming back to me. The judges at the garden show, because they're obviously very well known most of the time, people within the industry. And because I don't have any landscape design training or anything, I'll just all make it up as I go. I was fascinated to hear what I did well on and what I could have done better. So things I lost marks on were, so I had the negative part of the garden, which is all the purple plants. And I said they felt like that was disconnected from the main garden, which was part of the point. But, I could have had like a path going to that, whereas there was no path. So you had to walk around the outside of the garden to get there. So I could have had some way of connecting those two. When you walked up the steps at the main entry, there was no direction on where you should walk, where the main path that you should go was. So I had steppers coming out of the bathroom area and then steppers coming out of the entertaining area, and it was the same number, so it looked exactly the same. He had a name for it. It was like I've got no idea on those words. Something about having people knowing where they should go. It's not the path of least resistance, but I'm not going to think of the word. It sounded fancy when he said it, and it's obviously too fancy for me. But you want people to look at a path. If they see two different paths, they want to know which one looks like the obvious one. So I should have had maybe one stepper coming out of the bathroom and maybe 4 or 5 coming out of the entertaining area, so people knew that's where you go. And then you're just going to naturally find the bathroom area. So I lost points on that. The turf was pretty rough. So initially I wanted tall fescue, so because they said I lost points on the turf because that was really patchy. And I was going to use tall fescue for it, and then I got offered a turf supplier, and they don't sell tall fescue, so they said, we've got this one you can use that looks, it's a nice long and lush, we'll grow it specifically for it so it'll look the same or similar, but it didn't, so lost on that. So it's one of those things that everything was so expensive, so I thought I could save a bit here, but it would have cost me maybe $250 or $300 to supply my own turf. So it wouldn't have made a difference to the metal or anything, but it just would have looked a bit better for the photos as well. They didn't give us a written, they didn't write out the marks or anything. They just told us in the shed. So I haven't got anything to read back on, but I think they were the main ones. The plants were. They didn't mention anything about the construction, but I know there would have been things on the construction that they, I certainly could pick the things that they would have marked down on. But they just said it was a high silver, whatever that means. So, I was ecstatic with it. Like they were, his name is right on the tip of my tongue. Andrew Laidlaw. That's who it is. Unfortunately, this is live, so I can't edit that back in. But so he said to me, now I can't remember what he said because I've used all my brain power trying to think of his name. I'm a goldfish sometimes. So yeah, that was the judges' comments. So I'll go to the next question. We had one come in here from Devolution Landscapes. Do you do garden and lawn maintenance as part of your service, or just stick to construction? So I just stick to construction. I've got one or two companies who we recommend for doing the maintenance side of things. We did try it one stage early on, but I found that I can make more money doing construction because that's what I know and what I'm better at. So, and I definitely think you need to have dedicated people. So you can't have maintenance people doing construction, and you can't have construction people doing maintenance because they're good at what they do. As much as landscapers do a bit of everything, you can't do everything. So don't do that. And it's good just having people that we can recommend who do that side of things. And next question is from Outdoor Oasis Landscapes. What's your favorite trade to do in landscaping? So I reckon it's paving. It's starting to become concreting because I'm enjoying doing the architectural concreting, but I do love paving. I don't know what it is about it, but I go through phases of hating crazy paving and then loving crazy paving. But generally, overall, paving is what I like doing the most. I'll always make money on it as well, so I don't know if that's got anything to do with it, but except when I'm doing modded crazy paving steps, I don't make money on that, but that still looks cool as well. So I think it's like I like the challenges of setting it out as well. So setting it out so you've got minimum cuts or certain lines line up with certain parts of the project. So I'm on a podcast coming out in a few weeks for another trade podcast, and they were talking about how maths isn't really relevant to what I do now, because I talked about working at the bank, but I said it certainly is because of setting up projects. You need to be able to be good with numbers so you can work out full pavers and how everything's all going to work together. So yeah, definitely paving. That would be my favorite. Lloyd Sharp said, how or what do you look for when looking for inspiration online? So I do like just Instagram is what I like scrolling on. I don't do any other specific targeted inspiration searching that I do. But I haven't been doing a lot of designs recently either, so I haven't had to do any inspirational training of the brain in that time because I've just been doing construction side of things. So I do like going for walks though and just sort of looking at other gardens that exist. You just might find, like, I think a good thing to do if you're like struggling to find, let's say you're doing the planting on the south side of a house and you can't think of some plants that you want to look good in the area, you can just go for a drive or go for a walk and go on streets that are running east-west. So then you can look on one side of the street and plants that are against the house on the north side of the street are going to be in cool shade. So those are plants in your area that would work for that. So that's a good way to do things to get a bit of inspiration. You can see what's actually going to work in the situations. You got to make sure that they're similarly established so they haven't just been planted there within a few months and they will actually die, because then you're going to do the same thing. But yeah, mainly Instagram and just seeing what other people like the landscapists do with some of their insane concreting with the curves and all sorts of fancy stuff. Tegan's Garden Service said, what are a few popular computer programs to draw designs? So I found myself recommending Morpholio Trace recently, which is an app where you can do a bit of hand drawing using the Apple Pencil. So Liam Daly from Wildco, who's got a question later on, he uses that. Steve from Endemic Environments uses that. And Matt Heiner from The Artist. So there's a few people I've had on who use it and their designs look amazing. And it's kind of like, it looks hand-drawn because that's what they do with the pencil, even though it's done on an app. But we use, so we've got myself and a landscape architect. I use Landworks CAD and landscape architect uses Vectorworks. So they're the CAD programs are pretty popular, that and Vectorworks. And also, if you're wanting to do some 3D stuff, SketchUp is quite a popular one as well and easier to do basic stuff on. And then you can end up converting that into more fancier looking plugins to make it look more realistic and photorealistic. So yeah, there's a few around, but you sort of need to work out what you want to do, whether you want to do 3D stuff or you want to do hand drawn stuff, and then find the program that's suitable for what you want to do. And then it's good to find someone who does that if you can, or you can do the courses that most programs offer courses, like a training on how to use it. And then if you can find someone else who uses it as well to be a bit of a mentor, so you can ask questions and bounce ideas off them for how to get better and more unique looks to your designs, that's a good thing to do as well. Rich Earth Landscape Gardens said, what are your thoughts and policies on damage to company vehicles by employees? So he's had a few incidents, which has increased the cost of the insurance policies. And he's want to know whether you get the employees to pay the excess, because the excess has certainly add up. It's a good question. Luckily, I've only had one person who I've had to make a claim on. So that's because they took the vehicle home overnight and reversed it into another car. But I just ended up paying that, and I put him down as the driver. So I don't think I've had any issues with that or any increases to the policy. So I don't know if it's got anything to do with the cost, because I don't. There was a big cost on what it would have cost to fix the other vehicle. But yeah, technically you probably can't make them pay the excess. But it's just one of those things. Sometimes you'll hear employees bang about how unlucky they are with all the things their boss gets to get away with in terms of, I don't know what they would ever. It's one of those grass is green on the other side things. The employees always think that the world's against them, and the employees always think that it's easy for the employees. So yeah, it's like if I was an employee and I crashed the car and it was something that you would do that you shouldn't have done, then you would, if you're a decent person, you're obviously going to pay the excess. Like it's not like you're paying the insurance every week or month. So the least you could do is pay the excess. And it's only going to be $500 to $1,000. But yeah, probably technically you can't make them do it. But so we don't have any policies on it, but I know the guys who work for me they'd pay the excess if they made a mistake and had to make a claim. And the fellow who we did make the claim for, he offered to pay as well. So it's one of those things where no one wins in that situation. Willem from Torreya Landscapes in New Zealand said, if money was no object, what tool or piece of equipment would you get to make life easier on the job site? So initially when I read that question, I was thinking of either like a mini excavator, like an excavator, or a Vermeer or a similar machine like that. So mini skid steer. But then just as I read it, then the idea came to my mind about getting one of those Rio tires. I think they're like $3,500, but they're a battery operated tire to tying mesh together when you're doing concrete. So that'd be a good one. So I'd probably get all three of those. I'd get an excavator, a mini skid steer, and one of those Rio tires. So yeah, that'd be a nice. And I wouldn't be surprised if I have at least one of them in the next couple of years. Obviously, it's probably going to be the Rio tire because that's the cheapest of the three. Global Landscapes and Design said, of all the people you've interviewed, who, in your opinion, is the best plantsman? That would probably be Graham Rowe, I reckon. So second episode, first guest. He was a researcher on Better Homes and Gardens, so he had to know a lot of the stuff. So if the presenter didn't know what a certain plant was, or that'd be he'd feed him that information. So he certainly knows a lot of plants. We've also had Clint Bramston on, who's got his own nursery, so he would obviously know about a lot of plants as well. Obviously a couple right off the start. It would have been a couple of the most knowledgeable, I think, but haven't done any tests, so I can't say factually, but I reckon those two would be right up there. And then you got Emmeline Bowman and Ben Hutchison and Phil Withers as well, so they've all got a more sort of native plant-based knowledge, which they probably would outdo the other two on, I think. Liam from Wildco said, what's your favourite turf to use? Tiff Tuff seems to be everyone's favourite lately. It'd be definitely tall fescue. So when I started landscaping, that was the only turf that we would use. Everyone would put that in. looks amazing straight away. You can't see the joins. And then the drought happened. So then we were ripping out tall fescue, putting in gravel everywhere. And anyone who didn't take gravel would put in couch. So, and the couch was really thin. You could see the joins. It looked horrific. And then hardly anyone uses tall fescue anymore. So, but that's definitely what my favorite would be. I've just a couple of days ago had my backyard dug out so I can put in some turf when spring comes around or beforehand. And I'm debating whether to use Tiff Tough or tall fescue. Ideally, I would put tall fescue in. Just obviously it needs a lot more water. Yeah. So yeah, and it doesn't self-repair as well. As much as they call it, RTF tall fescue, saying it does repair itself, it's moves at a snail's pace, so it's as good as not repairing itself. So technically it does, but yeah, the time it takes forward, it's not worth saying that it does. So if you want something that repairs itself, you're going to go with one of the rhizome grasses. And one of the benefits of Tiff Tough is that it stays greener in winter a lot longer. So it still goes dormant like cooch and kikuyu and buffalo do, but it looks pretty identical to cooch, but stays greener. And I don't know if it grows. Yeah, I think it grows a bit better as well. But it's the newer varieties are being not manufactured, but they're being bred so that they're a better grass than what's already in the market. So yeah, it's good to keep up on the new varieties. Michael 4766 said, "What do you do during the year to help boost morale of the mid-year slump?" We're just about there too, so we're about a week away from the middle of winter, which is pretty exciting. There's not much I do, actually. I just look at the light at the end of the tunnel. When it was the winter solstice, I got excited because then the days are getting longer. Just reading that now, we're only a week away and it's the middle of winter, so we're on the downhill slope towards spring and summer. So that excites me enough. You could do an event like a Christmas in July kind of thing, and that's to get all the staff involved in that. But my guys went out for lunch the other day because it was one of their birthdays, but we're only a small crew, so it was just the two of them because I wasn't working that day. So it depends on the size of your staff, but it wouldn't hurt to do some sort of event. So I did see actually Brooks Blooms just did a big one. I don't know if they went to the horse races or something like that, but can't remember. But that's something that breaks it up. But at the end of the day, it's only one day, so it doesn't make a huge difference. I wouldn't have thought, but just something that we do that helps is not working in the rain. So that's that would definitely help, because if it's working in the rain and it's going to be raining all week, and you're going to have to keep going back when it's raining, that'd be quite deflating, I'd imagine. So yeah, that's something we do as often as we can. And that's one of the benefits of having a shed. So if there's some shed work you can do, you can save that for when you know it's going to rain. Living Landscapes DC said, "What type of warranty or guarantee do you give your clients, and how do you implement it? How do you manage callbacks and reworks?" So there's a lot of things that I don't do because I'm too old school. So and this is another one of them. So it's a do as I say, not as I do kind of advice here. But so I don't have any particular policy in place other than what's forced upon us by being a VBA member and having the building license. So there's certain defects policies that we have to abide by that. And I think it's 60 days, but I don't even know what technically comes under those defects. But we sort of basically do what's right, and there's nothing written that says that. But if we do something like build a retaining wall and the retaining wall falls over, and let's say the defects period was 60 days and it falls over after 61 days, then we're not going to not fix it. So you just do what's right, and that's how you build a reputation to being a good business. And yeah, everything all works out if you just do what's right by you and the client. There's obviously, and you want to have something written in place because there'll be people who will take advantage of that. So you might recommend they need to maintain something, and then they don't maintain it and it breaks, and then they say, well, that you didn't build it properly, so it's broken. So there are times where you should have that written in place, saying you need to maintain it Otherwise, it doesn't fall under the warranty and things like that. It's sort of to cover yourself, because there are people out there who just are stupid and will do that type of thing, unfortunately. And you're better off being too covered than not covered enough with all the literature that you send out with a quote. But yeah, I think there's like a 7-year. So I did say the retaining wall would fall over after 61 days, but I think there's a 7-year warranty on structural works. Could be 5, but yeah, luckily we haven't had any issues. So like we have little ones, like what was there? Just trying to think. There might be gates that move a little bit. So like pool fences, they seem to be a bit of an issue. So that like if they're attached to a deck, there might be a little bit of expansion, contraction in the deck, which makes the gate post move a little bit. So then the latch doesn't close on. I reckon, yeah, mainly gates are the most callbacks we get for, but there'd only be maybe 4 or 5 of them in the last 10 years, I reckon. So there's not a lot of them, but yeah, you just fix things that go wrong. Every now and then there's a bit of irrigation issue, but yeah, nothing major. So yeah, there's some people do like a 12-month revisit as part of a pricing program that they've included within the quote. So then you can, fix those things there, like a builder does after a 90-day 90-day inspection. So you could do something that's proactive like that, and then you could end up getting more work from that way as well if you want to do it like that. But we don't do anything like that. So next question is from Glennis Buck Designs. Do you ever return to projects to photograph them for advertising? And if so, how do you ensure they're looking good for photos? And would you do a free maintenance visit as incentive for the client? No, that's exactly what I would do if I was wanting it to look awesome for the photos. And it's similar to what people do when they're submitting a project in landscaping awards when they go to get photographed. So I've seen that happen plenty of times. And the same with open gardens and other things like that. So we haven't had any that we've returned to photograph other than sort of just, going to fix a gate or something like that. We'll just go into the project and then I'll take photos when I'm there. And the main reason for that is because a lot of them have been for other designers. So we've got enough work of our own construction work to promote ourselves. But what I'm wanting to do more is promote their design side of the business. So I'll be pushing that a lot more. So those are the projects I'll be getting photographed once they get built and then grow. But yeah, I definitely would be doing maintenance because you want it to look as good as possible. But worst case scenario, the photographers can get pretty creative with not only angles but editing as well. Because I've looked at some photos and they look better in the photo than they do actually in person. So there's no rules around editing your photos. So if there's a bit of watermarks or a bit of a bare patch in your tall fescue lawn, you can always just pretty it up a little bit like some real estate agents do when they put photos on. Barrow and Stone's got a short question. Coal barbecue or gas? So mine will be gas, but I haven't decided yet if it's going to be LPG or connected up to the mains. Because I'm going to be digging a trench for electrical anyway for power to the veranda area. So, but yeah, I've never had anything to do with the coal ones, and they sound a bit messy for my liking. And I don't do a lot of cooking on them anyway. So I understand people who get right into their cooking and smoking, and they might have benefits one way or the other. But yeah, we don't do too much, just sausages and hamburgers and just the basic stuff for me. And Steve Nyland's got the last question, which is, do you think landscaping is a more supportive industry than others? As in, businesses are stoked to get behind others' work, even though it's their competition. So I do think it is one of the most supportive industries. Obviously, it's one of the only ones I've worked in, so I can't judge too much on others. But particularly within the trade industries, I reckon builders get behind each other a bit. But yeah, you don't see plumbers. It could, I don't know if it's because they're active on Instagram like landscapers, because it's such a visual medium, because you don't see a lot of plumbers and sparkies and tilers and other trade plasterers posting as much as what landscapers do, because we obviously do the greatest work at the end of the job, which makes everything look amazing. But yeah, there's like Dan Knight this week on this week's episode, he's in Geelong as well as I am, so we technically are competitors. But it was awesome talking to him, and yeah, the amount of times we've had people help out each other, offer support, be mentors for people. So yeah, it is one of the best industries now, the one I know. But it's awesome to see that people actually do care about other people, not just about making money. And I think it also would help because of the abundance of work at the moment too. Because if there wasn't as much work going around, then people might be a bit more competitive in that regard, but it would still be supportive. So, but yeah, I think it is a good, very, very supportive industry. And Lloyd Sharps has squeezed in another question. Do you work for a select group of builders or none? There's two builders we work for at the moment, I think, possibly three, but yeah, it is only a select group, because there's time to work for other builders, and it's a nightmare. So the ones you want to work for are the ones where all the trades are working together, helping each other out. They're not just selfish and doing their own thing. So if we work for someone like that, then that's the last time we'll work for them. Because it's the episode with Brady Skevington was a good one, talking about that as well, about how the builder, he was saying the builders said, can you come in early? And then you come in early and everything gets ruined because everyone else is just caring about themselves. And the landscaping that has to be the last thing that gets done. So you want to work for builders who understand that and do everything to keep other people out your way as much as possible. So, but yeah, that was it. So thank you very much for everyone who submitted a question. And we'll do the same again next week if we get enough questions, hopefully again. But this week's, as I said, is Dan Knight from Knight Landscapes, a landscape builder, and doing some beautiful work in Geelong. And then we've got a couple of designers coming up, and then in a few weeks is the first episode I've done where there was two guests at the same time. So I was a bit worried about how that was going to go, but it went pretty well. So they worked very well together. So yeah, still got a few episodes in the pipeline. And thank you very much for everyone again who sent in a question, and we'll see you next week.